Welcome to another edition of Offset. Larry and the Big Man, two-time Stanley Cup champion Jay Caulfield. I'm Larry Richert along with Dave Ricchini. Dave is we've kind of dubbed him as the Nostradamus of sports and analytics too. That said, we want to thank One Team Media and their team, Mark Connington, Ryan Jorgen, and Logan Douglas, along with Brian Hess, the mastermind behind the great work they do, and also Odyssey Pittsburgh, Michael Spacciapoli.
Yeah, and also the Rourke Automotive Group. Dave Rourke's been a part of a title sponsor with us. They have the Rourke Advantage Lifetime State Inspection, Lifetime Oil Change, Engine Warranty. They have a new building out in Cannonsburg. You got to take a look at it. But Dave, thank you very much. And also to Henderson Brothers, Tom Grillish, thank you again for being a part of it.
Experience the power of partnership at hendersonbrothers.com. Much more than an insurance company. That said, gentlemen, we all wanted the Steelers to keep the distance between them and the Ravens, who are nipping at their heels. Just some thoughts after Sunday's game at Acrisure against Cincinnati.
Yeah, for me, Dave and Larry, I mean, it was, again, entertaining to look up. Can't wait to see a Steelers game, what's going to happen. I still thought, I think the dual running backs, and with Warren going out, we're not sure about that, but Gainwell and Warren, I think the running game was outstanding, and mixed in with the, out of the backfield catching passes, and opportunistic. The Steelers' D is opportunistic. They jumped on opportunities and changed the whole game. So again, a big win, and you move on and stay ahead of Baltimore.
Stuck out to me how they, contain the passing game for the Bengals after what we saw about a month ago with Chase and Higgins, and the 16 catches that Chase had. Those two combined for 6 catches on Sunday. And it's, they were playing with some backup guys in the secondary, and those guys stepped up. So that stuck out to me. You mentioned the opportunistic, obviously the 2 defensive touchdowns, but just in general, it seemed like the Bengals had a hard time moving the ball against that Steelers defense.
Yeah, some of the names that aren't necessarily household names on the Steelers defense rose up. And one, I heard some fans say, "Who's Kyle Dugger?" They didn't even know he came to our team. He was an acquisition and didn't play hardly at all in New England, but he had, and we'll talk about game-changing moment. There are a number of things that went on in that game, like how about Mount Washington?
Yeah.
Darnell Washington just eviscerating 3 Bengals on a catch that kind of lit the team up as well as the crowd.
That was Derrick Henry-esque. Those are like some of those Derrick Henry runs where he stepped on guys. He turned that corner, you could see they don't want to get in his way.
No, those D-backs.
The second D-back did not want it. He didn't want any part of it. No,
Jay, he made a business decision.
He did. That was an executive decision for sure.
And then he trucked the guy as he was going out of bounds and just blew him backwards. But while the fan base there that was electric. But what would you say was the turning point in the game, Jay?
Yeah, I got to go. I mean, I was leaning that. There was multiple things I was leaning that way, but I got to go at the pick 6 because they were going in. They were going in to take the lead. I mean, that's the thing. It's a big win, and it opened up. But Cincinnati was driving to take the lead, and that pick, and he even said it was a gift. I mean, it floated to him. He just took off and went. So for me, I'm going to go with the pick 6 and Duggar because they changed the whole game.
I agree. That was the first 2-score lead of the game. And they were driving her inside of 40 of the Steelers. So worst case scenario, they got a field goal attempt to, bring it within a field goal. But that was a key. It was strange because you watch that game, Mason Rudolph comes in the second half. The offense only had 2 drives.
Yeah.
They scored on both. So credit to Mason Rudolph being prepared, coming in the second half and playing well. But 2 offensive drives because what the defense did, the 2 touchdowns.
You could sit there as a backup and go, it's been 10 weeks. I haven't seen that moment. I didn't do my preparation. Then all of a sudden you get the flag to get in there. I mean, or the notice. He was really good. He did a great job. You're happy for a player like that. Always room for him. He took advantage of what was given to him and made the most of it. But again, when you look at a turning point in the crowd base, you did think Mount Washington with the play that he made, the way everybody reacted to it. But as Dave and I said, we're leaning on the interception part.
Well, I think that other teams are going to go, don't throw him the ball anymore, especially the D-backs, because you're right. They don't want to tackle him once he gets rolling, too.
Or you're going to key on him a little bit more because you don't want him to turn up. I mean, you want to get him before he turns up and has got a 5-yard head of steam coming at you. I do have to look. If we look at the second guy that went at him was Larry, to your point, a business decision. And I'm not going to do too much here. So it was rambling. It was a great part of the game, though. Great part.
All right, that said, the picks from last week,
Yeah.
we all picked the Steelers. Jay, you had 31-27. Cincinnati, based on that Thursday night game,
Yeah.
you thought Flacco would be able to score more. Credit to the defense.
Yeah.
You know, the scoop and score also paid off big time. So you got 14 points for the defense, but still pretty close to that. Dave, you had 23-17 Steelers. I had 24-17, but we all picked the winner. Yeah.
That what I saw yesterday, like the Steelers D, it's kind of wild. Like you almost need them to, the way they're playing the game, you need something like that. You know, that's what you're hoping on. You can fit. Are you always going to get a pick six and a fumble return? No, but something that turns the ball over, gives you a short field, and again that rose and that made the number for all of us. But it gave them the win, gave them comfortability, and again, you got to be. I said opportunistic. You have to be that way because it seems like a dunk, you know, a dink and dunk kind of passing game. Like you just want to see them like, you know, north south, something go deep. And I think even Trent Green, who was calling the game, if you weren't there, if you were watching it at home, Trent Green was an ex-quarterback. He even said, look, there's nothing's open. But then it stopped off. You have a great outlet to dump it off to in Gainwell. And then as we talked about with Washington. But still, that's one part of the game that makes it a little, you know, tougher question mark as you're moving forward.
Well, there's a big challenge, too. It was very windy.
Yeah.
And unusually so. Didn't affect the kicking game. You know, Boswell does what Boswell does, but he didn't have to kick, you know, really. I mean, it was so windy. You could see, well, you're probably watching on TV sometimes the referee and their pants are, so, you know, man, it was cold.
I had to work, the Penguins had an early game on Sunday morning. So you get out of my car right where I usually like to park, right on the, you know, in the main drag.
VIP parking for you.
VIP.
Well, all I know is I open my door, and you know, whenever you open a door and the wind's howling going the other way from your, I immediately thought about that, and I thought the under might be a good play today with the conditions. But you know, to me, it was kind of wild. I think whatever they do throwing the ball, I think Flacco looked like he banged up his shoulder. You know, that AC joint thing he was talking about. I think anything like that, I think the kickers are phenomenal when they can make something happen in that kind of situation.
We'll say your hair didn't look out of place, though, on TV on Sunday, so the wind didn't affect you too much.
No, it did. No. It was all right, Dave. Thanks for asking. I know you're concerned.
Perfect. All right, so who was the original Yinzer Dog player of the game? There are many names that could be in the running here, Dave.
Top of my list is James Pierre. I just thought I liked the way he played. 6 tackles, 2 pass defense, made a nice play on Jamar Chase, you know, down the field. Fumble return for a touchdown. But like I said, after what the Bengals did to them in the passing game in Cincinnati about a month ago, to come out and pretty much shut down Flacco in that passing game, I think he led the charge, you know, filling in for Slay. And now it's going to be interesting. Is he kind of think he's going to hold on to that job the rest of the time? And then honorable mention for me, Mason Rudolph and Kenneth Gainwell, you know, just coming in again. You know, Gainwell's been mixed in the offense, but to lead the team in receiving, had the 2 touchdowns, also deserves consideration.
So I'm going to lean on, I'm going to lean towards the Mount Washington because I just think that play, the building got revved up, it turned the momentum, and I had Gainwell, and I also had Mason Rudolph. But with that being said, I think the catch and run, I think that building game alive, and I think the bench, when you're seeing somebody do something special on the field and or ice or on the court, and something major happens and you need a jolt like that, to me, I'm going with him. I think he brought that, and he brought a different element, and everybody got to see a piece of it and kind of revved everybody up.
When you see the replay, which I've seen multiple times from different angles, you see Steelers sideline just light up. You know, they're professionals, but in that instance, they were just kids watching somebody, you know, do their thing.
Yeah, that's how I felt. I mean, like from experiencing, like watching, say, Mario Lemieux play a game, and you know, Paul Coffey from the blue line, the skating ability. But when you see somebody special do something, like you said, in your sport, the bench, you're watching. I mean, it's something that's kind of amazing, right? Somebody that good. Well, it's early. We're saying he's a tight end, but he's 6'7", 300 pounds. That might be.
He's not listed, but
Yeah. So that's why, but it's pretty special. I think the crowd at home, I'm leaning that way. That's my pick. The underdog of the week.
It was like when Saquon Barkley jumped
Jump.
backwards over the guy last year.
Yeah.
The best shots were the reaction of his teammates in the background. He couldn't believe it happened.
Yeah.
Similar to, you saw the similar things.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Washington to death.
It's awesome. So, Larry, what's your
Mount Washington.
Yeah.
The only problem is if we give them
double
original
up.
Yinzer dog tailgate, we're going to have to double up.
I think you're going to double this one up. We need to send them too.
It's not going to be enough.
So, Larry, what's in the tailgate package?
You get a pack of original Yinzer dog, Stanley Feet, Kachowski, Kowalski, Babushka Mama pierogies, and Yinzer Halushki.
Yeah, we have to double it up for him.
Yeah.
Double.
And when you're over 300 pounds, it's a double order, double pack.
But that was a play that, to your point, lit everybody up.
Yep.
Including the Bengals, who were like, lit up in a different way.
One other play, I loved how Warren tried to hurdle over the guy who was standing. He hurdled right.
He didn't go low. He didn't go low. No. Did that remind you? Remember Antonio Brown on a punt return?
When he kicked the
He kicked the guy.
That was that a Brown or a Bengal? I think it was that game. That was at home.
It was at home.
Kicked him in the head by accident.
Of course.
All right, that's our Yinzer dog play of the game.
It's a great pick.
That would be Darnell Washington, the big tight end. So around the NFL, I got home in time to watch the Browns lead and then have a chance to beat the Ravens. Obviously, Steeler fans were rooting for that. And then injury, Shedeur Sanders gets his first snaps, and it wasn't pretty. And they went from having a legitimate chance to win that game to disaster again in Cleveland.
Yeah, a little different how Mason Rudolph looked coming in for Rodgers and how Shedeur looked coming in for Dylan.
It was like I said, did you prepare? How much can you prepare as a third? How much can you prepare? You're the backup. He's the backup, right? What preparation did you do? That's what you're saying, Dave. I mean, Mason Rudolph, professional, did his job and was ready to go. And Dave, you go.
Shedeur looked like a fish out of water. That was actually sad to watch in a way because he was overwhelmed on every play.
Yeah, that's tough too as a rookie. Your first NFL regular season experience being thrust into action during the game. It's one thing if you have all week to practice with the first team.
He said he was ready to take over the team.
No, he didn't look ready.
Kyle Hamilton, I think it was Kyle Hamilton, had the sack on him. Did you see that? Right, he has the sack and he did his pose or whatever he did. I think it's just kind of when you go out there, that when you promote yourself that much and whatever he did through college, and I've never seen Hamilton act that way, and I thought that was kind of, I think the whole, if either on the side or I wanted to see him get in the game too. Like you drafted him, what are you doing? What are you doing with him? He's there. I think somebody said I saw something on Twitter that the Browns now are going to retire his number 2 in Cleveland. So why did you need to do that? I mean, in all honesty, did you really need to do that in Colorado where that's what I'm talking about. You do those kind of things. This is what every player notices and knows about it, no matter who it is.
Oh, they know.
They all knew.
And they knew.
Yeah.
It kind of pumped their defense up.
Yeah, it kind of helped. Yeah.
Because they had been maligned for a while, but they kind of got their act together again. And
well, plus too, don't forget, there were rumors around draft time that the Ravens were interested in him, and he didn't want to go there because he didn't want to back up Lamar.
That's right.
So I'm sure that also
the other factor. Oh, you didn't want to play here. Okay.
Yeah. That's right. That was a huge part there. Yeah, I didn't want to play. Okay. So, but then the fake tush push and they run it just Mark Andrews.
That was, for the game on the line for the Ravens at that point. That was because they obviously had a chance. It was 4th down. They could have kicked a field goal, but so I can't believe how wide open it was either.
I know. The Browns almost helped us out.
Thank you, Cleveland, once again for disappointing not only your own fan base, but us too. We were counting on some help because I think a lot of Steeler fans like the Ravens less than because they used to be the Browns.
Yeah. All
right. What else around the league?
Dave, you start what you got.
Well, my Seahawks didn't look too good offense. I mean, it was a sloppy game. I think both defenses came to play. But it's what I've been saying for weeks. You know, I still don't completely trust Sam Darnold. He had his worst game, but again, 2 weeks ago he didn't play very well. Had a couple turnovers, 4 interceptions though Sunday against the Rams, and they weren't. Not even that, he wasn't sacked once, but he was just rattled. Like, it was a clean pocket, and he just, I'm afraid to say, but it looked like he was seeing ghosts out there again. So, but yeah, they had a chance. Defense played well enough to win that game. But again, Matt Stafford, not great statistics, but 2 more touchdowns, no interceptions, didn't turn the ball over.
Might be the hype of the game. It was the first time going head-to-head against 2 teams that were vying for, that division, and maybe that got to them. Just like in Minnesota last year, he had a phenomenal year. Then in the playoffs, the game got away from them, right? So, but, I'm sure, they get it now and experience, but they're a really good team when he's on his game, and they need that. But outside of that, Larry, I mean, to me, I'm watching the game. Patriots look phenomenal again. There's something about it with Vrabel as the coach and what he's getting out of them, and their quarterback. He's just doing a great job. They're all rallying around that. So I think that now all of a sudden has creeped in from, you look at the AFC, but we'll get into some of that a little bit later on. I also thought KC with the Broncos, 5-5, Kansas City. I think there was a comment yesterday. I don't think Patrick Mahomes has never, every year he's played, he has not been in a division, the conference final.
Right, 7%.
It's unbelievable. Now they're facing the question. I still think they're the best. I still think it's hard to get away from them, but they put themselves in a bad spot, and they're going to be they'll be on the road if they do get in. But
what's missing?
I think they just had it. I think Denver's tough. Their defense was good, and they won late. I think there was a turnover. Mahomes throws it down. They could have been driving a little pick, interception against them. But I also think when you've played so much big football, so many is everybody as hungry as they need to be, and it's hard. I said it's hard to repeat in the NHL, and teams that are that good, and when you're able to get to a final or go deep again and maybe win or not, you're be on the wrong side of it. That's big time football, and the toll on the player is a lot. They're playing when other guys are already sitting it down and relaxing and going on and recovering. I think it's stuff like that, Larry. I mean, but I still think they're, at the end of the day, when we get towards the playoffs, where are they going to be? That's still one team I would watch out for a little bit.
It's the best group of weapons he's had since they had Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
And, especially coming off the bye, Andy Reid's track record, he was 22-4 off the bye. They didn't pass the eye test offense. I think the defense is good enough.
Yep.
I think, and it's shocking to say, but I don't think the offense is doing enough to get it done for them.
Finally, Philly and Detroit. Philly's starting to look like Philly. And what happened with Detroit?
Jared Goff didn't look good. And the Eagles, again, you watch them, and they're not that impressive. 7 of their 8 wins this year have been by 1 score. I mean, they're not blowing teams out, but they do enough. The run game, and Hurts does just enough in the passing game. Jay, I know you didn't like the pass interference call late in that game.
I did.
No, that was
awful.
Man, that was
awful.
There was some bad officiating, even in
the KC game. Late KC game
and
too.
the Browns-Ravens game.
Yeah.
The Dolphins game had one too. A lot of people didn't see it because it was in Germany. It was at 9 o'clock, but there was a really bad pass interference call.
Yeah. So that said,
Phil, I will say one thing about Phil. Their defense, there's something about them, though. There's an aggression on their defensive side of the ball, and they got skill in the defensive backfield. And when they do that, they play that. They literally, the Eagles, it was on their offense that they twice. Dave and I talked about this before. Detroit, as we know, goes for it on 4th down. 5 times they went for it on 4th down. 2 times inside their own territory, they're 0 for 5, right? And we'll get into that a little bit later on too. But the Eagles couldn't do anything with it. So their defense was solid. And to Dave's point, they do just enough to get by and win, and that's it. But I think when you have a D that's that aggressive D, I'm always going to lean there's something about that. They have the skill on the other side of it. There's an aggression there, and that Dijon in the backfield, Dijon. So I don't know. I like them still, but tough one. And that call was brutal, even for the fan. Just watching whether it's your team or not. Call was terrible.
The trade to get Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins, he's made a difference on the edge there. He's been a factor for that defense.
All right. That said, Pitt had the eyes of the college football world with ESPN's Game Day on the North Shore. All of that went well. Fans attended, had the hype. You had Aaron Donald's retirement ceremony for his number 97 for Pitt. You had Tony Dorsett in the house on the 50th anniversary of him running for over 300 yards against Notre Dame. The stage was set for maybe an upset until after the first drive when Mason Rudolph suddenly looked like a true freshman 18-year-old. He was under siege, and he got sacked on that drive. And really, from that point on, they were never really in it. But that was an on-conference game for them. They have Georgia Tech this weekend and then Miami at home. If they could find a way to win those two, they'll only have one loss in the ACC.
Yeah.
And they got to get some help, but they could be in the conversation.
I would really love to run a simulator and see what happens in that game if Hunter was able to connect on that deep pass
I agree.
on the first. I think that changed the he may not score there, but it's going to set them up inside the red zone, maybe inside the 10. You get a touchdown there and score early. Because, I mean, yeah, Notre Dame, the 2 touchdowns back-to-back with Love and then a pick 6 completely changed the momentum. But I still think if Pitts gets on the board first there, it's a different ballgame.
I feel the same way on that. First, I got to say one thing. College game day was outstanding. Pat McAfee.
He's out of his mind.
Yeah.
Having a good time.
Yeah.
He's a Plum native, for those that don't know. He kicked to West Virginia, then with the Colts, and really became, with a podcast, notable when he was able to snag Aaron Rodgers for an exclusive interview, you know, when Aaron was going through kind of an odd time in his life and career. And then suddenly he's on the stage, and the next thing you know, they're bringing all this to Pittsburgh. And Kirk Herbstreit's golden retriever, Peter, got the loudest ovation. Came up, I was there in a golf cart, and they had the stage set up on what they called a great lawn near Acrisure, which faces the city. So you could see the backdrop was across the river, downtown, the point, and they brought the dog out, and the place went absolutely crazy. And then they showed a video, Herbstreit's talking to the dog. The dog's laying in a bed saying, I put you through a lot this weekend. Just rest easy. And I'm thinking, when the dog is getting more hits on social media than the guys on the show, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I just thought the whole thing, you know, the way the city of Pittsburgh, you know, the student section, everything that goes with it. Pat McAfee's really knows what he's doing. He was really good, really entertaining. The field goal opportunity, poor kid, $1 million, then it went to $2 million. You could tell as soon as he starts to approach the ball, you could tell he didn't have.
I wasn't out.
It felt bad for him. But I think the way Pat McAfee really, he takes it to another level in the way Aaron Donald threw him off the stage. You know, everything that goes with it was a great job. And you said, then lead up. And I totally agree, Dave. That drop pass, I wonder what it would have been like. Who knows? But I thought as the game wore on, the skill players on Notre Dame just had a look at, you know, the running backs, the receiver, they were
in the national championship game last year with a chance to win. They didn't lose much. So
they look good.
Freeman's got a good football team, and they're a cut above. They're in a different level.
Well, you learn from it. Pierre and Dan. And Larry, you notice, Dan Marino, your brother-in-law, he understands the game and what it means. It is not, you know, that position. No, few are like Dan. Few. Probably should even just keep him on. I'll just keep him on an island. To be able to do what he did in his career, then go on from college into pro. I mean, you get experience. When you see different looks and everything that comes with it, to me, they're very tough, but he'll learn from it.
We'll see how Mason Rudolph and the Panthers bounce back in Atlanta this weekend. Dave Ricchini, always appreciate your input. More to come on Thursday.
Look forward to it.
All right, now it's time to check in. From 93.7 The Fan, it is Andrew Fillipponi. They call him the PM team along with his partner, Chris Muller. Andrew, first thoughts, Steelers, Bengals.
Well, my takeaway is that we watched Mason Rudolph come off the bench and play well. And I thought he played better in his 30 minutes of football than Aaron Rodgers did in his. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a positive anytime you have a backup that can come in cold without first-team reps and play the way that he did. It's also a little bit concerning that Aaron Rodgers, against one of the worst defenses of all time, struggled the way that he did after the opening drive. And now he's got an injury to his non-throwing hand on top of that. So, I'm not ready to say right now that Mason Rudolph gives the Steelers a better chance to win than Aaron Rodgers. But if he's less than 100% and Mason Rudolph continues to look this way, well, then I think it becomes more of a conversation.
Yeah, Andrew, and when you look at the games, and it just seems like a dink and dunk kind of offense, right? Just always out to the flat, whatever, nothing deeper. And I saw Trent Green, we talked about this before. Trent Green talking about a lot of times there really is nothing open, but for some reason, that type of offense kind of just drives you crazy when you're watching as a fan, but not seeing the whole field. If you're watching on TV, it's tough, but nothing much more than 10 yards down or out to the flat or to a back. Tough to watch at times.
Well, especially because of how bad Cincinnati's defense has been all year. I mean, they were giving up, and they end up technically giving up more points than they allow. On average, it's 33. They give up 34, but we know 2 of those were defensive touchdowns. So really, your offense scored 20 points against the Bengals defense, which is not very good. And I thought that they ran the ball fine. I thought they'd run the ball great. They did not. And I thought running the ball exceptionally well was going to open up things in their passing game, and it didn't. Now, the only minor excuse, and it's a small one, but I'm going to say it anyways. The only minor excuse I'm going to give the Steelers offensively yesterday was that the winds, I think, did affect the downfield passing game. And even a couple of times it looked like Rodgers was visibly frustrated because he thought he had made a good throw and the wind had messed with it. So, I mean, that's one thing where, you expect Rodgers, given his arm talent and arm strength, to be able to throw the ball even facing 25-mile-per-hour winds or whatever it was. But it seemed to go both ways, where both quarterbacks had a hard time dealing with some of the elements in yesterday's game.
That said, how fortuitous perhaps that just this week, your draft pick from Ohio State, Will Howard, gets put back on the team after his injury early in camp. So he hasn't even been on the field. And all of a sudden, depends on how things shake out, he may end up being the backup to Mason Rudolph if he goes. I'm sure he's not ready to play, but Mason Rudolph looked like a journeyman quarterback that could get the job done, to your point.
Yeah. And, with Will Howard, look, he's been injured, but he's been around the team the whole time. He's taken the mental reps. He's not young. He's in his mid-20s. He played a lot of college football at both Kansas State and obviously last year winning the national championship at Ohio State. So that's something that should benefit him if he has to be one of these break glass in case of emergency guys. He's not a raw project. He's not someone that should need a lot of schooling and tutoring and those kinds of things. That's what happens now in college football when guys are able to stay in school and make a lot of money playing college football. There's more of a reason for them not to put their name in the draft. And I don't know if he would anyways. He was a guy that really at Kansas State was known as more of a runner than he was a passer. And he refined that at Ohio State his last year. He was a very late bloomer. And so I'm curious to see if the stuff we saw from him in the college football playoff is ever going to translate into the NFL. And I'm more curious about that now because of the way a lot of the big-time college quarterbacks performed this season, guys who we assumed like Drew Aller at Penn State, who are going to be first-round picks. So you never know. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger needed Tommy Maddox and Charlie Batch to get injured. He went and he never came out of the lineup for 18 years. This is a 6th-round pick and not a first-round pick quarterback. But I do think he has some intriguing skills and abilities that make you wonder if he could be the Steelers quarterback one day.
Yeah, Andrew, we were discussing the Shedeur Sanders situation in Cleveland, and you see Mason Rudolph go in, and there's no matter what sport you're playing, and if you're the best, you're at the elite league, there's a level of preparation. Even if you're not getting the reps or the snaps or whatever it is, there's a level of preparation. We saw Mason Rudolph had it, and you saw what it's like if you're Shedeur Sanders and you're not really prepared for what could go on.
Well, I think Shedeur Sanders has an entitlement issue where he just assumes that he's going to go in and play well. And I also think his camp has kind of created this alternative universe where he has been made into a martyr or a victim. He was a 5th-round pick. Teams looked at him, all 32 teams, and said, we don't think you're as good as you think you are. We also think you're going to create a distraction for our team. And I don't think that he's put great work into being a backup quarterback. I think the coach, Kevin Stefanski, has basically implied that and alluded to that whenever he gets asked about him, which is pretty much on a daily basis. And I agree. I thought he went in and Baltimore had a very specific game plan for him. They just blitzed him the entire time. They sent a ton of people at him and he panicked and didn't know what to do in those situations. So I'm not convinced that Shedeur Sanders is ever going to be a viable NFL quarterback. I happen to think that Will Howard has a better chance of one day being that guy.
And Steeler fans will be happy to hear that. Let's flip the field on defense. Some names that aren't necessarily household names with Steeler fans, and certainly the newcomer, Kyle Dugger, had the game changer when it looked like Cincinnati was driving, maybe to even take the lead. That seemed to really energize, obviously, the fan base and the team, too.
Well, Kyle Dugger hasn't been exposed in pass defense yet, and I think that's the biggest thing. He played 100%. He played every snap of the game, and the MO on him coming from New England was that because of his ankle injuries, he had slowed down a lot. And he wasn't the kind of safety they wanted there anymore because they didn't think he could run with receivers and tight ends. And that's why he was buried on the bench there, even though he was making a lot of money. That has not been exposed yet. We've seen him drop an interception early in that game, and he comes back and he catches one that's thrown right at him, and he returned it all the way for a touchdown, which you're right. It was, to me, kind of the momentum-changing, momentum-swinging play in that game. That seems to be a diamond in the rough deal so far, but we're going to see Caleb Williams and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Jared Goff on the road at Detroit, these guys who absolutely have an ability to probably take advantage of some of those things. So I would say so far so good, but I'm not ready to say that Kyle Dugger is the guy that's been a game changer or unlocked something for the Steelers defense big picture.
Andrew, too, I'll go back to the offense real quick. Gainwell and Warren both combined. They're complementary, right? They look, one can come in and do something different. They run the ball differently. And again, depending on health as we move into the week, but it's certainly nice. And I think Aaron Rodgers was a big proponent of that, to make sure you get both these guys on the field at certain situations, in game situations. But obviously Gainwell took advantage. He took advantage when he was the number one back, I think a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about it, Andrew. Like when a player knows he's the number one, he had a different vibe about him, a different way. When he played the game, you could tell he knew he was the guy, and he had a great day that day. I thought yesterday again, I think when you understand your roles and you're touching the ball, it really stood out to me. And they again, great complementary backs if they can continue to do it.
Well, the thing that I didn't really like initially that is, helped them in yesterday's game is that both of those guys, I think, have a very similar skill set. Warren and Gainwell, I think, have a lot of the same attributes as running backs. I think they both catch the ball out of the backfield well. I think that they both pick up pressure well. You can have them back there on passing downs, and they can pick up blitzers and pass rushers and stuff and help out a quarterback in those situations. I think Gainwell's probably a little bit more of a physical runner than Gainwell, and that's probably what differentiates the two, and why I think Warren is more of a starter and Gainwell is a backup. But I mean, the proof is in the pudding. They play Gainwell just as much as they play Warren. And I still think Warren is the superior player. But to Gainwell's credit, like you said, I mean, he made huge plays catching the ball out of the backfield on third downs in the red zone.
Yeah.
And this is the second time this year he helped them win the Minnesota game, which was a close game in the end. And obviously when the offense was stagnant in this game, he helped break it out and allowed for them to win the game going away in the second half.
Yep.
Steelers-Bears Sunday in Chicago. The Bears are streaking. They've won 7 of their last 8. They sit atop the NFC North. They're ahead of the pack. Literally, the Packers, followed by the Lions and Vikings. Tough division. What makes the Bears so successful this season, Andrew?
Well, they brought Ben Johnson over from Detroit, and he was probably the most sought-after coaching commodity out there. And the reason why he picked Chicago is because he wanted to work with Caleb Williams. And what he's done, I think, is the way that they've run the ball has been really the key to making Caleb Williams into a better quarterback, where the interceptions and the turnovers and the trying to do too much, it's still there, but it's just not as big of an issue as it was his rookie year. They've been the best team running the ball in the entire NFC, and they don't have a big name running back. There's no Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley or anything like that. They went out and they revamped their offensive line, and they've got a better play caller in terms of run scheme and also when to run the ball and how to run the ball in given situations. And Caleb Williams has got a lot of Patrick Mahomes in him, in that he looks like a guy that you think he got sacked, and he finds his way to spin out of plays and turn them into either plays where they're positives, where he makes a completion downfield, takes off and runs the ball, or even throws the ball away and lives to play another down. So they have won these games by the skin of their teeth. They have found ways to win, even though they've got a negative point differential on the year. So in a lot of ways, they kind of mirror the Steelers, where they have a good record, but it's not like they've blown out teams or really looked like a great team here through the first 2/3 of the season. And that's part of what makes, I think, Sunday such a interesting matchup.
Yeah, now we're gonna dive into college here real quick, but before we go there, Andrew, I got to ask you, because it's something that drives me. Larry hears me talk about it a lot, but I'm watching teams go for 2-point conversions. I'm watching teams go for it on 4th down, not taking points. The pick game for me, and I know it was out of reach and it wasn't going to really change much, but you get a pick 6 and then you go for 2. Now, to me, whether you're down 18 or 17, I understand it, analytics, but you weren't gaining much. I mean, you lose momentum every time you do that. And again, I know wasn't a lot of momentum going on, but you do get a pick 6. How's your feeling about that? I know analytics for me is a necessary part, but sometimes you got to use the eye test and go by feel and take a point and keep momentum and see what your defense can do.
Well, I thought the Bengals' decision to go for 2 after their first touchdown, they took a point off the board because the Steelers' penalty on the extra point. And their logic there is probably, look, our defense has been horrible all year. We might as well put the ball in our offense's hands and give our team a chance here with an extra yard closer to make a play and take the lead. But as it turned out, I mean, they ended up chasing the game the entire time as a result. I mean, those Steelers drives that stalled in the first half, if the scoreboard says 7-7 instead of 7-6, I think Cincinnati probably has a higher, level of confidence and morale and all those things the entire way there. And, instead of trailing by 4 points at the half, I think 10-7 looks a lot better than 10-6, for example. So
I agree.
I do wonder about that. To me, like, Cincinnati obviously is maybe in a different category because their defense is just so screwy and so bad that they have to maybe make other adjustments and decisions as a result of that. But there absolutely is an epidemic in football where teams are choosing to go for it on 4th down and go for 2 more than ever before.
Yeah. We said we saw the Detroit Lions do it. They were 0 for 5 the other night, on Sunday night, and it's crazy to me. But I understand that's how he likes to coach, and I'm a fan of him as a coach. But sometimes in that game, you could see Jared Goff didn't really have it going, and maybe get a field goal, close it up a little bit. But we know how that goes. But just want to hear your opinion of that, and I'll let Larry dive into Pitt.
Yeah, and before you go, Pitt, Notre Dame, not a shocker that they lost necessarily, because, you had a team that was in the national championship game last year with a lot of talent, and it showed. I was disappointing, though, the way the game itself played out, because the weekend was so great with ESPN's College Game Day. It brought a lot of juice and excitement, as you know. That said, what do you think the odds are of Pitt going to Georgia Tech this weekend, once a top 10 team also, and then hosting Miami to close out the regular season in the ACC? Do they have a chance to win or at least get in the championship game in ACC action?
Well, they definitely have a chance of beating Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech needed a huge comeback to go to Boston College and win on Saturday.
Right.
The week before, they lost by double digits to NC State, who Pitt handled. So right now, I don't see a disparity or a gap between the two teams. Pitt's got to flush this one, and maybe that was the psychology of what Pat Narduzzi said about the Notre Dame game, which I still don't like, but maybe that was the method to his madness. And if they beat Georgia Tech and they're playing next Saturday at home against Miami with a win and into the ACC championship game, well, then I think a lot of what he said there before the Notre Dame game will be forgotten and forgiven to some degree. But it's a very winnable game. It honestly has a chance to be, it is big in that respect. It is bigger than the Notre Dame game. It's not college game day, and it's not like all the eyes of the college football world looking down upon you. But if they beat Georgia Tech, they're in a driver's seat situation again. And maybe this is like trying to find a positive and a negative here. But the fact that they lost to Notre Dame the way that they did gets Georgia Tech to take its eye off the ball a little bit and take Pitt more lightly than they would otherwise. If Pitt beats Notre Dame, Georgia Tech thinks that they've got, a huge battle on their hands for Saturday. Georgia Tech plays Georgia the following week, okay? Like that is their rivalry. Their coach is not going to say the Pitt game is more important than the Georgia game. That's a chance for them to keep their arch rival out of the playoff and maybe get themselves in. So that's the way I look at it. I think Pitt, even after the misery of Saturday and how badly they played, I think if they can bury the film from that game, they have a chance to go beat a team that right now looks very vulnerable to me.
And by the way, that's a 7:00 kick from Atlanta, Georgia, which means I'll get to bed about 3 a.m. Sunday morning. But that's why we do what we do. Andrew, as always, we appreciate your time.
Yeah, Andrew, thank you very much. We appreciate being on.
You bet, Larry. And then you got to turn around and, you don't have to do the game on Sunday. You can just sit at home and watch the
Yeah, I think I may sleep in till kickoff at 1:00 with the Bears. And then Steelers will host the Buffalo Bills 4:25 the following Sunday at Acrisure. Andrew Fillipponi from 93.7 The Fan Afternoons. Chris Muller, the PM team. Always appreciate your time. Thanks.
You bet.
And we want to thank our team from One Team Media, Brian Hess, and along with Mark Coddington, Ryan Jorgen, and Logan Douglas, who produced this episode of Offset. Jay?
Also, Rourke Automotive. We really appreciate the Rourke Advantage, lifetime state inspection, lifetime oil change. Their new building out in Cannonsburg. Dave, appreciate your support. And also Tom Grillish from Henderson Brothers. It means a lot that they're a part of it as well. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
And we want to thank Odyssey Pittsburgh, led by Michael Spacciapoli. Those are the people I work with and allowing us to do this. I'd appreciate you, Jay, for having me. And the Henderson Brothers again. They've been around since 1893. Just a reminder, Tom Grealish was not born then. It just may feel that way for Tom. He's a great guy and does a lot of tremendous charity work, and their organization is numero uno. Experience the power of partnership at hendersonbrothers.com. That's this edition of Offset, Larry and the Big Man, and that's a wrap.